All right, so with that, welcome to tonight's training. We are specifically going to be jumping in to a special campus leaders meeting for getting you and your chapters activated and focused on budget reconciliation. We're holding this tonight in place of our usual monthly higher ed monthly call, because now is the time for a big push on the House and the Senate, everywhere in Congress and the White House too, actually. And we're going to learn from Sabrina about the campaign and how you can help us succeed. And we especially wanted to focus on your critical role as young adult leaders in helping us move forward with the budget reconciliation progress, and especially at the beginning of your school years right now, helping you provide some key tips and areas of focus with your fall strategy and events around this campaign. So to get us there, I'm your host, Brett Cease, but I'm going to get out of the way in a little bit, and I'm actually going to pass the baton to the wonderful Sabrina Butcher, who's going to walk us through tonight's training. Prior to joining staff this year, Sabrina was a public policy student at the University of Michigan, where she led a student CCL chapter for 2 years. So she has been in your shoes. She knows the challenges, the growth pains, the areas that you might be bumping into, and she now handles all things endorsements and helps coordinate Grasstop's actions as CCL's action and endorsement coordinator. She's also managing our Epic phone banking and text banking efforts. So if you're curious about that, that's a wonderful opportunity that we can also tell you a little bit more about tonight, that young adults are just absolutely helping us thrive with. So our 3 learning goals really in the next half hour, we'll stay on track, we promise, are to provide context for this campaign within really the current budget reconciliation plans that you're seeing, especially in the media, in the Senate being discussed. We'll also go over some campus-specific actions so that you and your chapter can be part of getting a carbon price into budget reconciliation and keeping it there when it's introduced. And finally, we'll develop a relationship with your state coordinators through some advice on how you can stay connected with statewide goals and really understand what else is going on in your key state, since right now we're really focused on that state-based strategy with the role of the Senate. But with that, I will pass it to Sabrina. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We're really in treat for a real great webinar, and the floor is yours, Sabrina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sabrina. Like Brett said, I'm CCL's Action and Endorsement Coordinator, and I've been in your shoes. I was a campus leader for 2 years. Tonight, I want to make sure that you all understand what budget reconciliation is and what that process looks like. That will also provide some context for the actions that you can take on social media and in your chapter meetings. And then finally, we'll go over how to find your state coordinator's contact info and why it can be really helpful to have a relationship with them. And then we'll have some time for some Q&A. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. We are holding this special call because now is our time to get a carbon price passed through Congress. Budget reconciliation gives us an opportunity that we may not get again for a very long time. So it's super important that all of our chapters take this opportunity to act and get fired up about the future of climate policy. Looking around the world, seeing the dramatic effects of climate change on our planet and our need for success with Congress has never been more urgent. So we are answering the call. In July, we kicked off the Senate calling campaign. We had an original goal of 10,000 people contacting their senators, and we raised that goal because so many states exceeded their initial goals. Also, July set a record of the most actions taken in a month at CCL at a moment when action has been so essential. Then in August, we started our House campaign with a goal of 10,000 people contacting their representatives, and we also passed that goal. Since our CCLers have risen to action, we have learned that the Senate Finance Committee is actively considering introducing a carbon price in budget reconciliation, so our activism is working. So what is budget reconciliation? It is a process that allows specific budget-related legislation to bypass the filibuster so it can pass with just 51 votes in the Senate. Congress generally has one chance to use reconciliation per fiscal year. So our job here at CCL is to make sure carbon pricing is included in it. We are in the second step of this process that you see on the slide right now. So far, we have started 2 campaigns and reached our goals in both. Now the Senate and House committees are drafting an outline with specific legislation in which we know carbon pricing is on the table. So it is still just as, if not more important, that people are calling and asking their Congresspeople to include carbon pricing. Hopefully during the second half of September, which is creeping up on us, we will have an even better idea of their intentions to include a carbon price as they release draft legislation publicly. After that, the legislation will be negotiated, adjusted, and finalized for voting. The Senate will pass it, then the House, then President Biden will sign it into law. So for the Senate campaigns, we have different asks for Democrats and Republicans, since Democrats are the group that's working on reconciliation. For Democrats, we are asking, we're calling and writing to urge them to support and advocate for a carbon price in the reconciliation package. For Republicans, we are asking, or we're calling and writing them to urge them to enact a federal carbon price so that US businesses can avoid paying Europe's border tariff and remain internationally competitive. I also want to let you know that the highest priority senators are those that are on the Senate Finance Committee, since they play a large role in determining what makes it into budget reconciliation. Some questions you may have about the Republican and Democratic asks. Why do we need to contact Energy Innovation Act co-sponsors? Carbon price in reconciliation versus a carbon price through regular order really are substantially different. House offices may assume that we only want to see a carbon price through regular order, and many of them only joined and signed on because you asked them to. So they may not have a strong intellectual engagement with the issue beyond being responsible to you, their constituents. For those members, flagging that this is again an opportunity to be responsible to their constituents and do what you want will be super important. And why do Republicans still matter if Democrats are the ones that are writing reconciliation? The answer is reconciliation may fail. We may fail to put carbon pricing in it, or it may fail entirely. So we may not end up with a big, ambitious reconciliation bill that has strong climate provisions. We may then be back to needing Republicans to be on board with a regular order bill. Our chances there in this scenario are going to be greatly improved if they have been hearing from us throughout this highly partisan process that they still have lots to their constituents who want something like this. It will affect how they view the entire climate provisions of this process and lead to fertile ground for us if reconciliation fails. And for Biden, we are asking him to support carbon pricing in budget reconciliation as the best way to achieve his goal of 50% emissions reductions by 2030. While he will not be writing any part of the reconciliation package, his support and guidance is still super important to most elected Democrats. Making sure he is on board and vocal about his support will only make it more likely that carbon pricing is included. All right, so what can you do? We are going to go over some actions, outreach, and connection that you can make, including calling and emailing everybody once using the landing pages. We'll go over our national targets for our current campaigns and let you know that they've been met, but many local targets have not. It is also always extra helpful for Congress people to hear from young voters and soon-to-be voters. We'll talk about clipboarding and tabling where it's safe to do so, talking about helping on national phone banking and social media campaign. So first, here are some actions you and your chapter members can take right away. Our tools have email templates and scripts built in to make it really easy for you and your chapter members to write and call Congress, whether you've done it a million times or never before. Both calling and emailing just once is the most impactful. You can also write President Biden. He obviously has a lot of sway over Democrats in Congress. If he voices support for carbon pricing and reconciliation, that only helps its chances of getting in and passing. And we have a training guide on community that can help you write a 150-word LTE letter to the editor in one afternoon. It has tips, tricks, and a template, which is on the screen right now. When you write one, be sure to focus your topic on reconciliation and try to call out Biden or a member of Congress by name. When I was a chapter leader, we did this as a chapter-wide activity one day. We asked all our members to find a relevant article to write the letter to the editor about, then gave a presentation on how to write a letter to the editor, and gave everyone about 10 minutes to start one. Later that semester, one of our members got one published. I don't know if any of you have used the social media toolkit before, but it's a really nice thing that our media department puts together that makes it super easy to post about our campaigns on social media. It's on community. It includes an Instagram story ready graphic, as well as a bunch of other ideas and images for boosting our message on social media platforms. Many of the members of your college chapters are going to have a social media, which is not necessarily the case for a lot of other CCL chapters with older members. Therefore, your participation in CCL social media campaigns can make a big difference. Like, this is your moment. And now we're going to move on. We have Elliot Smith here, who's a chapter leader at the University of Michigan, and he's going to talk about how he and the UMich chapter have been able to use social media and the toolkit to promote CCL actions.
Hey everyone, I'm Elliot. I was co-lead of our chapter for 1 year while Sabrina was there, and have continued on in her absence. And yeah, so social media has been big for us for recruiting, and also just generally, as Sabrina mentioned, having young people that can run our social media accounts makes us, like on Twitter, oftentimes we just tweet about general climate stuff, and that feels like a really effective thing to do as well. The social media toolkit is awesome, especially for Instagram. You definitely need really professional looking graphics, but even for Twitter, having that extra visual appeal really goes a long way to increase engagement. And if you're facing the choice between having to create a graphic of your own or having one that's already pre-made, it's a really easy choice to go with what's in the toolkit. So I found it super helpful. Social media has been a big part of what our chapter has done. Yeah.
Thank you, Elliot. If anybody else here tonight has used social media or the toolkit to promote anything regarding CCL, then you can go ahead and pop your story in the chat. And then at the end, we might have some time to read them over and see how you have all been using social media. Okay, the next action that you can take throughout the semester is asking friends and family to take action. CCL President Madeline Para talked about how asking friends and family to contact Congress can be a little uncomfortable sometimes, especially if you have asked them before. In the August All Leadership Call, she asked everyone to kind of lean into that discomfort and make it known by saying something like, "It's a little hard for me to ask you again." I've also heard from other volunteers that it gets easier to make the ask the more you do it. Since the beginning of the school year, many of you are probably working on recruiting new members and making CCL known on your campus. A great way to do this is to take advantage of any events your university is hosting. If there is a specific club event that's set up for clubs to recruit people, that's great to be at. Definitely sign up for a slot. If they're hosting welcome events, you can table or clipboard outside or hand out flyers. If you are doing any in-person outreach like that, please follow your university's guidance regarding this and only participate if you and your members feel safe. Another event that is easy and fun to host in person or virtually is a call-in night. You can invite your members and their friends to come call their representative and senators all together. You can use the CCL tools and do a model call for everyone, then show them how to find their congresspeople's contact info and allow them to go ahead and make their calls. And this can be a super fun way to get people to make a call for the first time when they're surrounded by friends and support like that. Additionally, I'm hosting national phone and text banking that all CCL volunteers are invited to. We will do some phone banking. We're doing it this week, we're doing it all next week, and we're expected to kind of continue doing it throughout the reconciliation process as the priorities of who we need to talk to shift. You could do this as a group in place of a meeting one week, or simply let your members know how to sign up. Either way, the more people we have, the more calls we can make and the more texts we can send. The feedback on our phone banks has been really great. Since we're only calling CCL supporters, this has been some really amazing phone banking, super fun, really positive conversations. It's different from any campaign phone banking if you've ever done that before, since we're calling like friends because they're all CCL members. Okay. Besides getting friends, family, and your own volunteers involved, your chapters are in a particularly advantageous position to get support from professors, higher ed admin, deans, and presidents. Many academics are prominent community leaders and experts in their fields, so their call and emails to congresspeople provide a different perspective from other callers. If there is a professor in a relevant field, one who supports carbon pricing, or one you're close with, please reach out to them and tell them about CCL, our current campaigns, and you can ask them to participate. If it's helpful, you can set personal or chapter-wide goals for reaching out to community leaders. Setting reachable goals gives your members something to celebrate. Okay, finally, we're going to go over how to connect with your state coordinators. I want to make sure that you're familiar with them. These are volunteers who work on CCL goals and strategies for your whole state. So they'll be super familiar with your senators and representative. They can give you some insight on their current attitude toward carbon pricing and good ways to approach your members of Congress. You can find your state coordinator and their contact information on CCL Community. They will be expecting your call or email. They are always super excited to work with you, with young people, with people who are recruiting people on college campuses. And they'll always be happy to be a resource for you if you ever need help developing goals, organizing your group, or planning events. You can also attend their monthly call with every group leader in your state. This is a good way to connect with other group leaders and stay tuned into national CCL campaigns, statewide initiatives, and state level climate policy. And Brett, it's back to you.
All right, well, I'd love to just highlight again that all of what we've talked about here tonight should be available in the chat. We also have like a master page that is called the Budget Reconciliations Actions training topic. I just put a link to that in the chat too. You can just search for reconciliation, or tell anyone in your chapter to go to CCL Community and search for reconciliation. Should be the top hit. The great thing about this page is that it's consolidated everything together from the trainings on what we're focused on. It's constantly being updated. So now this is an old version. We have a lot more recent campaigns focused on the White House and on getting your community leaders to sign in to log their support with their members of Congress too. It's got some great videos. You can see some social media links and toolkits, some really helpful blogs that are available as well. All of this is available with that one quick link. So if anyone's curious, it's also available publicly. You don't have to sign into CCL Community to see it. And this is a great way to kind of consolidate all that information in one central place. So with that though, we have reached the most important part of tonight's training, and anyone can just unmute. Feel free to just share what you're curious about here in the chat, or by clicking on that little microphone icon. What are people thinking?
I guess I'm wondering, people might know this more than I do as far as like congressional processes, but how long like this timeline is for budget reconciliation as far as putting other campus actions on the back burner or focusing on this, kind of what your insight is on that.
Absolutely. So to answer the second part of your question first, this should definitely be your top priority right now. All of CCL is focusing on reconciliation because, like I said earlier, this is the best chance we've had since being an organization to get carbon pricing passed. So we want to make sure that we are using all of our resources, all of our people, all of our energy to focus on reconciliation. And then this process, we're not totally sure how long it could take. We are kind of hoping that by the end of this week or maybe next week, the Senate will have released some of the legislation that they are planning on putting in budget reconciliation, because they have announced that they want kind of outlines of that done by the 15th, but that could get pushed. So as far as the full timeline, I don't know, Brett, do you have a better idea of how long the full timeline takes?
I wouldn't trust anyone that tells you that they do. I think that this is definitely a very, amorphous and fluid situation. Like Sabrina highlighted, where we're at right now is early on. We're hoping actually by Wednesday to have some more specific legislative text, at least in draft format. That's what Senator Schumer, the actual Senate Majority Leader, has indicated as a deadline. But with the recent drama over the weekend of Senator Manchin saying that he is not in favor of the 3.5 trillion tag, that may get pushed out a bit. And I think the key thing for a lot of policy veterans that have seen this play out in prior reconciliation pushes is just to know that original goals are probably going to be pushed back. This is probably going to be something that lasts for months, and that we're all going to be digging into to make sure that the most ambitious climate package that not only includes a carbon price, but that has some version of a clean electricity program, that has some version of a climate conservation core, that makes sure that any of the investments the federal government is putting into place has that 40% earmark or that direct investment into frontline communities. All of these things are going to be needing to be fought for the next 3+ months, I'm guessing, and this is just the kind of opening salvo, if you will. So know that it's going to be an exciting semester to be on campus, and we look forward to hearing what you're hearing too in your groups, because this is certainly something that really is the once in a generation or at least once in a decade way to really push forward federal policy and to do so with ambition. So yeah, and I know that we also had a great question, Amy, in the chat. She and I were privately chatting just to clarify, so we didn't interrupt your flow, Sabrina. But if you wanted to speak a little bit more to phone banking, I know that this is something that a lot of people have had success with. What's kind of the experience like, to give a window in for somebody that maybe has never done it before, that's curious, what's the impact of this versus, spending that same amount of time doing something else? Why have you found it to be so impactful?
Yeah, so the way that phone banking works with CCL, how we've been doing it is we have these 2-hour sessions every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's how we've been doing them recently. And they always start with a training session. So we show you exactly how phone banking works, the script we're using, we explain why we're doing it, and then we go into the specific software that we're using and show you how to use that and set it up on your own computer. So it should be super easy. Some of our older CCL members struggle with it, but I'm sure you guys will be fine. And once you start making those calls, then you're on the phone with CCL members. So people who have signed up for CCL communications in some way. And like I said earlier, the feedback from it has been awesome. We get a lot of people who are on the phone and say like, oh my God, I saw that email, or I saw that action in my email and I meant to do it and completely forgot. So I'm so glad you called. We get a lot of people that thank us and say, oh, I never would have done this if you didn't call me. So thank you. And just a lot of friendly conversations and people who are super eager to take the action after we talk to them about it. So they're typically super short phone calls. So even if like calling people makes you a little nervous, like these are friendly people for the most part, and they're short. And we do it for 2 hours, but even if you can just show up for an hour, any help you can give is really amazing and super, super helpful, because you can talk to upwards of 10 people who say yes. So you'll talk to more people than that, but a lot of people will get like 10 or 12 people that say, yes, I will take the action. So that's like 12 people that you're responsible for getting them to take an action, which can be really empowering. So it's been great for the volunteers that have been going. It's been fun for me to give those trainings and help people learn how to phone bank, because it's also just a valuable skill. And text banking isn't super different, except we aren't texting CCL volunteers. We're texting people that from like voter lists who have said that they are likely to take a climate action or like feel strongly about climate change. And texting, you can send like thousands of texts in a 2-hour period and get probably tens of responses, and then a percentage of those will say yes to taking the action. So that's much more passive. So if one of those really appeals to you, or both, then coming to either is awesome.
And could a whole chapter sign up with that short link that we put in the chat if they wanted to kind of have that be a social activity for one of the evenings?
Absolutely, yes.
Woo woo. Hey, well, we're mindful of time. You live busy lives, and we promised you half an hour. So let's deliver. Right now, here's a basic actions recap that Sabrina has run through. Again, share your actions. Those links are available in the slides. We can put a link again to overall the slides where all of this is available for anyone after tonight. Here they are in the chat one last time. Please feel free with your chapter to focus on what you think is most strategic based on those actions that you can take, whether it's social media, whether it's phone and text banking, whether it's having those personal conversations, and then share with your friends, with your family, with your higher ed faculty and staff, with anyone that we forgot to mention. And if you have extra time, you want to get all strategic, connect with your state coordinators. They'd love to have, especially your energy as an up and coming leader in your state, get plugged in what they're focused on. But a reminder, since we are going to stay on for people that want to, but for those that have other plans, click on that little triple dot button in your chat. At the very bottom right, you should see a little drop down menu that says save chat. You can get all of these URLs for later. But we just want to close tonight by saying thank you for helping us make a difference with this critical window. It is such an exciting time to be with CCL right now. And we're just honored for you to be a part of this larger movement that we're building. Is there anything that you would like to say in closing, Sabrina?
No, I think you said it well. Yeah, thank you guys all for coming tonight. Thank you for all the work you're doing on campus. It's really great, and I hope to see some of you at Phone and Text Banking.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration. And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.